And aloha, welcome guys. If you know who I am, then you know I am the one, the only Caffeine and Chaos. To my left is the Working Dragon Mystic, also known as Drake. If you are new to my channel, then welcome. This is the Magical Coffee Hour, where we drink coffee and talk about magic. That's magic with a CK, not just a C, because, you know, we're not just little birthday party magicians here. No, sir, we are not. If you are a longtime user of this channel, then you know that this is Supernatural Sundays. Moved over from Saturday because God knows Saturday is a hard day for me to do anything that isn't my normal. So, how you doing today, Drake?
I'm doing good, though. Do you have anything that resembles normal?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's why I'm caffeine and chaos. My life is chaos. All day, every day. But anyways, happy Yule, everybody. Blessed Yule, season's greetings, all that good, wonderful, lovey-dovey ship. I mean, that's why I'm caffeine and chaos. Why am I hearing so? All day, every day. Why am I hearing myself?
You got a chorus of Linda somewhere.
I hear me. I don't know where I'm coming from, but I hear me. But I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
I've got everything shut down over here. This time it's not me.
Oh, well, who knows what just happened. It's gone now. Let me see here. Was it something on the background noises and stuffs? It looks normal. Okay, everything's back to normal. Hey, how's it going? Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm a terrible human being, and I don't check I don't check anything. I'm terrible. But no, so as I said, we're celebrating Yule today on the channel. We got our festive gear going on. If you don't celebrate Yule, well, season's greetings, whether that be Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever it is.
Festivus.
And yeah, Festivus for the rest of us. And if you don't celebrate any of that, or you don't acknowledge any of that, happy Sunday, guys. Just be happy. Just enjoy your life, right?
That's my opinion. A lot of people get, it's like, you have to say this or this or this. It's like, you know what? I don't care. If you come up and wish me a happy holiday or just a happy day, I'll take it.
I mean, I want you to have a happy day.
So, holidays are stressful enough without having to worry about all that.
God, ain't that the truth. So anyways, like I said, we're going to be talking about Yule today and all of the wonderful things about it. So, what I know about Yule.
Uh-oh.
It is a pagan holiday. It's about the winter solstice. Sabrina the Teenage Witch celebrated it. She did not, Yes, I'm going back to that.
Where does she get money for this? They should be paying us.
You know what, they should. They should pay me some royalties or some kind of crap like that. What also do I know about Yule? It's the fact that if you don't burn your Yule log, then ghosts are going to come in and rock your world. I don't have a Yule log, so, I mean, I expect there to be ghosts visiting me, because that's just how life is for me, I suppose. But aside from that, what can you tell me today? What is Yule? Mr. Drake?
Well, Yule, it is the celebration of the winter solstice, which is the longest night of the year. And it's often celebrated somewhere between December 20th and 22nd, because we like to put our calendars where it's on a number instead of following the sun itself. Because astrologically, last night, December 21st, was the winter solstice specifically. A lot of people are celebrating tonight, just because people like to have that nice even number. And that's fine. Either way works. I don't get too picky on it. Honestly, I celebrated last night just because it was convenient. And it's actually a celebration of life and rebirth as much as it is the end of the year. Because the whole point in Yule is a lot of the magic and traditions are bringing the sun and the light and the warmth back. Because, we've been through this long, hard winter. It's just been getting colder and colder and darker and darker. And when the land and the environment and the change of the seasons really affects how you live, that becomes a massive deal. And So all their celebrations are built around that. And it is considered a fire festival. They love to light their fires.
I do like fire.
So, I mean, many of the traditions are built around that, like the Yule log. I don't know where the... I've heard the Yule log can offer protection, though the ghost thing, I've not actually read that particular one. I did see the episode, though. And it's also a blessing and kind of a protection / blessing through the next year. And there's a tradition of you save a piece of the Yule log every year to start next year's Yule fire with.
Okay.
A lot of modern people these days, when they say Yule log, they actually go buy a log and they decorate it with evergreen branches and holly berries, and they usually put 3 candles in it and light the 3 candles. So the Yule log's more of a enchanted candle holder, if you will.
So kind of like a menorah.
Kinda.
Interesting.
Interesting. I'm not sure many pagans would actually draw that connection, but I see it. I mean, it is.
Fair.
And it's because not everybody has a fireplace and not everybody can build a bonfire.
I mean, I'm pretty sure bonfires are illegal out here in Hawaii for the most part, other than like out on some of the more out there beaches without trees. But aside from that, so yeah. So I do know that there's the Feast of Saturnalia, which is to honor Saturn, the god of agricultural bounty.
Yep.
So what can you tell me about that? How is that typically celebrated? I know I just said that it's a feast, but I mean, like, what kind of foods are traditional with that kind of feast? What kind of bounty?
Okay, I have to say this. With the Feast of Saturnalia, I'm unsure.
Okay.
That particular feast, I've not done a lot of research on, so if specifically talking about that, I have to say you have stumped the dragon.
Uh-oh.
However, when it comes to Yule, there is a lot of the things that we would think of traditionally for holiday foods actually were well known. Not turkey. They would have actually more likely had goose. Because there was no turkey in the old world, and to my knowledge, turkey strictly was a New World food for the longest time. Apples played a huge part because of their rebirth, life, and abundance and fertility. So that's how wassail worked its way into Yule, which we talked some about. Pork was actually really well known for Yule. They served a lot of pork, and some people even say beef, but pork seems to take the lead over the beef.
Okay.
And beyond that, it was a lot of breads, stuff like pumpkins and gourds and stuff like that are all harvest-style foods that keep through the winter. These are going to be the things that they had on hand. It's the stuff that they could store through the winter.
Okay. So I'm looking at a little bit of it right now, reading about what kind of things are typically eaten during the feast, because I was kind of curious, and anything that deals with food is going to make me happy.
Yeah.
So there's herbs that are typically associated with Yule, which includes bayberry, blessed thistle, evergreen, frankincense, holly, laurel, mistletoe, oak, pine, sage, and yellow cedar. And then foods of Yule include cookies and caraway cakes soaked in cider, fruits, nuts, pork dishes, turkey, eggnog, ginger tea, spice cider, wassail or lamb's wool, ale, sugar, nutmeg, roasted apples. So it sounds pretty darn delicious, and I really wish I was celebrating Yule right now, because that makes me delicious.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about this wassail? I know we kind of talked about what it was before, but what is the significance of the wassail?
Well, it is an alcoholic drink, and it's the focus on it.
Yeah.
it comes from the apples because, again, it's that prosperity, that abundance, that healing, that connection with life is what they were shooting for. And apples were already a big part of the harvest, and they're great to store long term as long as you don't have a bad apple in there.
I'm a bad apple. That's what my parents said, anyways.
Well, there's truth to it. When an apple bruises, it actually releases a type of gas that will actually make the other apples go bad. So there's actually science to the saying. But obviously alcohol was at one point the best way to make sure the beverage was sanitary. So you basically had water. They did drink water because it had to be boiled, but they did drink it. Anything else was usually going to be some kind of alcoholic beverage.
Okay.
So it was made with usually hard ciders and ales. And the reason it's called lamb's wool is because they also would incorporate eggs into it. They would work the eggs into like this. It would almost be a cross between a foam and a custard. It's really interesting to see it. And they would mix it in there, and so that when you served it, it actually looked like it was foaming up. But it was just that egg mixture, like whipped cream on the top, and it actually kind of had like a wavy texture to it, similar to like what you'd expect wool to have.
So like a meringue.
Yeah, kind of like a very wet meringue.
Okay.
It tastes really good. It tastes really good, and I have made wassail with it before. But if you've ever had to temper eggs or anything, you know there's that one point where you blink and you go from correct to scrambled eggs. So I usually skip that portion of it, and I bring whipped cream in at the end. I just hit it with whipped cream.
I mean,
I'm lazy.
Cream's good time.
I admit it. But if somebody wanted to make it themselves, we do have a video on it at Working Dragon Mystic that can show you exactly how to make it. But just quickly, you just need some spices, cinnamon, nutmeg. We throw something in there. It's a big mixture of spices. Holiday spices is what we call it. We throw 3 bottles of ale in there, 3 bottles of hard cider. We hit it with some brandy to bring the alcohol content up and help round it out a bit.
Okay.
And you can.
This isn't like a small batch kind of.
No, this is we make this in a 6-quart crock pot.
Okay. Okay.
And then you turn it on and you let the seasoning and everything simmer together and serve warm.
So that sounds delicious, and now I really wish I had some.
I actually have the stuff. I'm thinking about making some either tonight or tomorrow.
Well, I mean, the solstice doesn't end until January 2nd, so.
Yep, technically true.
So you're pretty safe between now and the 22nd. You got plenty of time, or you can just drink it all by yourself during the entire time. Just.
Yep. So.
Okay, so we've covered food. I just love talking about food. We can talk about food this entire episode, and I'd just be happy. What are some rituals that would be typically taking place here? Because, like I said, with Sabrina, because I try to bring some pop culture references into this so people can understand where the hell I'm coming from and where my knowledge comes from.
Exactly.
They lit the Yule log to keep the spirits and stuff at bay, and kept that going the entire time of Yule. What kind of rituals actually do take place, and what kind of, I guess, offerings would you give to the gods and the spirits if that's what it's about?
Well, if you work with entities, what you would offer to them would differ. Because, for example, I work with Odin. Odin actually has a long tradition in Yule. But his offerings, regardless of the time of the year, is pretty much the same. You can give him alcohol, food, and he's pretty much good to go. uh, and honestly, alcohol is the easiest thing to give him in most cases. You can even leave out oats for Slafnir, his horse.
Aww.
Which we'll get into the mythos on him, but the major rituals most people know about for Yule, and probably the one that's most common across the largest span of cultures, is the fact that Yule was considered a fire festival. And as such, the Yule fire would be kept burning all through the celebration. So,
Okay.
and actually, this is where the concept of Christmas lights come from, because it is kind of a festival of lights. We're trying to bring back the sun and bring back the light and the warmth. So, keeping candles lit throughout the house, keeping the fire lit. In a village, they would usually have a large bonfire that everybody helped keep lit the whole time.
Okay.
So they constantly had these fires going, and tending that in and of itself is a massive ritual, because there's a lot of energy that goes to maintaining a fire. And again, that fire's whole purpose is to draw that light back and that warmth back, which of course brings back the crops and all that.
That's really cool. So for those of us who have no access to building a Yule fire or a bonfire, because, you know, I live in Hawaii, like I said, I can't be lighting up fires in my backyard because I might burn down my neighbor's house since we're only like 5 feet from each other. Or, you know, people who live in apartment buildings and can't go on a camping trip with their friends out in the mountains. What would be a good at-home replacement to appease the season's tidings?
What I have seen done, and I've actually tested it, and it works out wonderfully, is any form of electric candle will work. They work actually really good. If you can actually have a live candle, I recommend getting the large jar candles. You can usually at Walmart for like $10, you can get a jar candle about that big.
Yeah.
That's a great substitute, because you have that flame, you have that candle, and it'll burn long, period. That said, if you can't do that, decorate with lights somehow, some way. Christmas lights are inexpensive these days.
That's true.
So you can just plug lights up all over your house and have that wonderful holiday glow to represent the fire if you wanted to. Because the concept is still the same. You're lighting a light to essentially draw back the light.
Okay.
So any of these modern options are very doable. And I looked at these because you see a lot of college students and especially military members. They can't have open flames where they're at. They can't.
Nope, it makes things difficult when you live in the barracks.
Yep.
So what other things? So I know that with Yule and the solstice and everything, Odin and Saturn, because it's the Feast of Saturn, and I know Odin because of him being the god of the hunt, right? Hunt.
He does do hunting. He is somewhat known for hunting. Though in Norse, he's not technically the god of the hunt, but he is the god who leads what's known as the Great Hunt.
There you go. So what other entities are we celebrating when we celebrate Yule and the solstice?
Well, you'll hear the legend of the Oak King and the Holly King. At both of the solstices, they tend to duke it out and see who's ruling at that time. So up until Yule, the Holly King is ruling. And that's that whole darker half of the year, that winter. And then at Yule, they duke it out again. And now the Holly King is defeated and the Oak King is now ruling. And so we start moving into the warmer half of the year, and spring and summer, and everything starts growing again until we get around to the next solstice where they switch over again.
So, is that is the Yule log based upon one of those kings? You know, oak and holly, they're bushes and trees.
I'm not sure on that. I won't lie because the Yule log is such a long-standing tradition. I've heard several different things. Some people say the it was chosen from it was used. Sorry, oak would be used because again you are looking toward the oak king to bring that light back. I've also heard that the wood that was used, oh, what was it? I'm wanting to say it was like ash or yew or something like that. And that's because the culture that would burn it, that particular wood represented protection. And then I've had one person say that the type of wood changed from culture to culture. So I don't want to say for certain on that because I've heard so many different spins on it.
Okay.
But that is a good question. I do think oak tends to be the more popular. And that may just because it's easier to get a hold of. I don't know.
Okay. And I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about this next year when we get closer to the summer solstice. However, what are the biggest differences in celebrating the summer and the winter solstices? Solstices? Words are hard. What are the big differences between the two solstice celebrations?
Probably the activities. Because the winter solstice, it's very much... It's colder. You can't get out and do as much. It's more... Everything's turned inward. So celebrating the winter solstice, you see a lot of indoor crafts. This is when a lot of people catch up on their reading. I know people who took up knitting this year. So they look for stuff that they can do indoors. Now the summer solstice, it's considerably more outdoor because it's hot. No one wants to be inside.
No.
So the activities are very similar in a lot of ways. It's just you're celebrating according to the season. So the summer solstice always reminded me more of like the traditional summer picnics and 4th of July parties and Labor Day stuff that I always grew up with. Seriously, the first summer solstice I went to, it just reminded me of a massive barbecue with a bonfire.
That's nice.
So, and when it comes to celebrating these holidays,
Hey, Travesty.
I actually tend to look them up every year as I'm preparing for them because there are so many holidays. But yeah, come summer solstice, we'll definitely have to dive into that one because it's a lot of fun. And it is too a fire festival, so more bonfires.
Once again, I want to say welcome back to the stream, Travesty. You are never too late, darling. You are right on time. We're talking about the winter solstice that's happening right now. Today started the winter solstice and, Yule celebrations. So have a blessed Yule. Do you have any questions for us today? Also, I'm super thankful that you're showing up as red on my iPad because that makes my blind ass able to see what you're saying. Oh, it's terrible. Like, I don't know. Some days, like, I can look at it and some people put, like, these most, like, obscure colors as their font for whenever they're talking. And I can't read it. I'm like, I don't know what your name says unless I'm, like, on top of my screen. But I'm not going to just pull my screen up right here.
Yeah, some internet fonts chosen are rough.
It's like putting Comic Sans in a professional paper. Just don't do it. Okay. Like, I really look forward to talking about the summer solstice, especially because it'll be my last summer out here, and I'll be getting naked and running around celebrating Lupercal too, because, why not? Woo! Although I think women got beat during Lupercal, so
I'll be honest, that's not a festival I was familiar with until I saw the show. So I'm going to actually have to research that one. I'm really curious about it.
Lupercal, obviously I'm going way off the rails here. It's a Greek festival to celebrate the brothers that were raised by wolves. Can't think of their names right now, but they were raised by a she-wolf, and the Greeks celebrate it by running through the mountains, drinking milk, and it's like a relay race or something like that. Like the whole town celebrates, everybody gets naked. It's a good time. Women get beat though.
That's not good.
Yeah, women get beat with like cat of nine tails made out of like sheep or goat bones, and milk gets poured into their wounds to like it's. I think it's supposed to be about fertility or something. I don't know.
I see why that's not an old festival that was brought over with the modern craft.
Yeah. Aw, Travesty, he goes, he has no questions yet. He just woke up and was like, shit, Drake and Linda's on.
Hey, I'm honored I'm your first thought when waking up.
I mean, you know, I've gotten a lot of random messages from dudes on the internet that say you're the first thing I think of when I wake up, and it goes downhill from there. So, I mean, knowing that it's Travesty thinking of me, I feel blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed. There you go.
Okay. So I went off the rails on that one, sorry. I just love wolves so much.
No, well, let's take the wolf segue. And,
Woo!
you know, we mentioned Odin, right?
Yeah.
And I say segue because Odin has 2 wolves.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised when I started working with Odin and looking into his lore, because he actually has a massive amount of Yule lore. In fact, there's a lot of people who genuinely believe Odin inspired the modern day Santa Claus.
Really?
Yes. Now, I've read a lot on it, and it's a fascinating viewpoint. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. There's a lot of... The Yule facts of him are true. So I'd say some of those facts did play into it. How far that would go is another question, because one thing is, if you look at the really old version of Santa Claus, actually a little bit pre-St. Nicholas, he was pretty much an old guy with some kind of long robes, and he usually wore a hat of some kind. Yep. And Odin was known to travel the world disguised as an old man with a hat and long robes. And he usually dressed warmly with a big beard. So you have that. And then they say Santa's 8 reindeer came from the fact that Odin rides an 8-legged horse. And that he would actually ride it. And the great hunt, on the return from the great hunt, if you kids would leave straw in their boots for Slafnir to eat as they on their return back. And
that's for the stockings.
And in return, gifts would be left. So yeah, you got that stocking connection. And then Norse legend would say that during the Great Hunt, all the Norse gods were both more giving and a bit more harsh. So if you screwed up, your punishment would be harsher. But if you were doing good and everything and doing the best you could, their blessings would be that much more. So you got that extra giving coming through the season.
Okay.
And a lot of the foods come from the fact that, again, you got the Great Hunt. We're talking about hunting here. So we're going to get us some critters, and we're going to start a fire, and we're going to grill some meat.
I like it. So since we're talking about Christmas, because I was trying to save Christmas for our big conversation, but we've already hinted that we're going to get there. So let's just go ahead and dive on in. Everybody and their mother knows at this point, thanks to the internet, the more accepting nature of society and other religions outside of Christianity, that Christianity basically stole the pagan holiday of Yule and turned it into Christmas. If you do any kind of theological research, you know that Jesus Christ was born around Easter time frame rather than Christmas time frame. We also know that this was kind of the Christian way of saying, hey, we don't like you celebrating something that doesn't honor our Lord, so we're going to take what you already do as a holiday, as a celebration, and we're going to make it our own. So we know that the tree, so the pine that we decorate inside our homes, outside our homes, is supposed to be a symbol of fertility in the pagan holiday of Yule.
Yep, it's a phallic symbol.
The guiding star that led the three wise men. Could you elaborate a little bit more on where that comes from Yule?
Honestly, from everything I've seen about the Yule tree, the star was not originally on it.
Okay.
In fact, older Yule trees were actually decorated with candles.
Okay.
Now, I've always...
Your Christmas lights.
Yeah, that's where our Christmas lights come from again. Which I've always tried to figure out how you get a candle on there without setting it on fire. That's some craftsmanship right there. But they would also usually just decorate one massive tree outside. They didn't usually chop them down and bring them inside. Though I've heard some cultures did it, and it was a way of bringing that evergreen prosperity into the home. But also, these cultures usually didn't chop something down without purpose, so how does that go?
Okay.
But in the Yule trees that I have seen described, there's either nothing on top or it's a candle. Which, if you've ever seen a candle flame without seeing the flame, you just see its light. It really does look like that long style star where you got the two long points and you got the 2 points here that come out. They're shorter than the long ones. Yeah.
Thing.
Just looks like a stretched out asterisk. So, yep. I think a lot of the star came from that. And, of course, Christianity probably jumped on the boat when you did get to the guiding star. Now, the debate there is which came first. Did Christianity bring the star in and the star makes sense because of the way the candle flame worked? Or, that's probably going to be debated till everyone's blue in the face.
Okay. So we've got why there's gifts under the tree.
Yep.
We understand now why the stockings are there. We got the tree, we have our star on top of the tree. What about garland and the decorations that go on the tree beyond the lights?
Again, most of those decorations serve two purposes. They help to reflect light, so they were usually made with some form of glass or crystal, something reflective. And some of the decorations were actually representative of family. Okay. So, like if you had a village tree, a lot of families would either, everyone in the household would craft something, or the household itself would craft one ornament to represent their home on the tree that season.
Interesting. Because I know if you look downstairs right now at my Christmas tree, it's not covered in candles. It's definitely covered in very dirty ornaments.
And garland, you're talking about the shiny garland, right?
Anything that wraps around. I mean, you got your popcorn garland, you got your beaded garland, you got the tinsel garland.
The tinsely garland got it's definitely more modern because they didn't really have that. But what its original purpose was, it's a representation of winter itself. Because these trees were outside, they would have snow and ice on them. The garland is actually that ice, which people didn't mind on the tree because ice reflects light again. So it's kind of like the tree becomes a giant lighthouse for bringing the sun back.
Okay.
And since it's an evergreen, the ice can't overcome it.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
That's why the evergreen trees were used.
Okay. So let's see here.
And
thinking back to
the popcorn. You mentioned popcorn?
I did, yeah.
That's a grain.
Oh.
It's about harvest. It's about planting. It's about bringing those crops back. You're already starting to sow a fertile harvest for the next year.
And you can't get popcorn without the heat of the fire.
Yep.
So is that also kind of the same reason why we roast our chestnuts on an open fire?
I've heard it is, but now I've seen that from two sides. I've seen it from the lore and I've seen it from the culinary side. And the lore, there's people who's told me that's why we roast them, and from the culinary side, it's people swear up and down that's just how they cooked them.
Okay.
But I mean, if you were asking me and you were to put me in a situation all the way back there, and you told me everything I put fire to is going to help warm it up, I'm going to put fire to everything you give me. I will try to roast ice cream at that point.
I do love me some fried ice cream.
So, I personally, and I can't prove it, but I personally believe it was a little bit of both. I believe that a lot of the foods and the way they were cooked were not only necessity, but part of the belief. Because our belief influences our food often as much, if not more, than necessity.
This is very true. I mean, like, think about eating kosher.
Yeah. I got a lot. There's a lot of cooks I know who believe you can learn more about a culture through their food than anything else.
Ooh.
Because
Trusty says he can make fried ice cream. Sounds like I'm going over to his house tonight.
Sounds good. I've never figured out fried ice cream, and every time I've ordered it, it's just been covered in cornflakes. That don't count.
There's out here it's usually made with tempura batter, and then they put pancake crumbs on the outside with it, but it's so good. I love it. I love it. I think I need to quit not eating before these streams because we end up talking about food and it just makes me hungrier.
Fair warning. Pagan cultures and practically all magicians I know, they love their food and feasting.
I mean, maybe I should really reconsider my stance on religion and just become pagan just so I can have an excuse to eat all the time.
I mean, seriously, right now, if I think about it, I cannot think of a pagan celebration that is not a feast. We throw a party, it is a feast. There will be food, there will be drink, and we will make merry. Even at Samhain, when everybody we're celebrating the dead, but we're still celebrating, and there is food.
The dead gotta eat too.
That's what a dumb supper is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They got. Cheers to the dead.
Yeah. So the foodie in me loves that.
So, thinking back, I know one of the biggest traditions of Christmas is telling ghost stories, and I know that also is that's also a tradition that was adapted from Yule.
Yes.
Can you tell us about where that comes from?
Well, it's actually a mixture because one, you're talking about that dark half of the year. Naturally, ghosts and goblins and spirits have always been attached with the dark. So, dark half of the year, you got to figure they're going to be more active. Not to mention, we just went through Samhain when the veil was viewed as the thinnest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got that natural aspect there. And come around Yule, we're now celebrating family. So you're going to have stories about ancestors and, things long ago. And in a lot of ways, it's a repeat of Samhain. You're celebrating the life of your ancestors in those stories. But one of the more interesting ones I've heard is you're also telling stories about things they're not necessarily spirits as we think of ghosts. They're more of Fae spirits. Because this is the time of the year when the dark Fae are prominent. So this is the perfect time to tell all those scary stories of how the dark Fae might kidnap the kids or run off with you, or will-o-wisp might lead you into the woods, and you truck off alone in the woods, a red cat might get you. All these little spooky stories that you can tell about the Fae, this is a great time to tell them. And it's kind of funny because up until, was it this year or last year, I didn't know scary stories and YULE went together.
Really? That's something I've actually always known.
Somehow, in all my research, that's something that's been glossed over, and it kind of upset me because one of my biggest beefs in magic or any kind of theology study is when people try to just sanitize it.
Oh, God, yeah.
And, I want the gritty truth. I want to know both the blessing and the sins that got us where we are. So, you find out that these scary stories were a part of YULE, and it's like, that sounds freaking fun to me.
Facts.
I love scary stories. Let's tell some scary stories. And I had a friend mention it, and they're like, I wish we'd bring it back. It's like, do it. Do it at your YULE celebration. No one says you can't.
Facts. So, since we're bringing up the scary stories, I know this is more of a German and Western European thing. No, actually it's more Eastern European. European thing. But Krampus.
Oh, I love Krampus.
The celebration of Krampus before Christmas. Is there any kind of pagan roots to that? And if so, does it relate back to the Dark Fae? That's the non-Seelie court, right?
I'd have to double check that one. My Fae knowledge is a little rough.
I'm just going to have to become a Fae expert and just be pop culture and Fae for you. Anyways, is there any tie to Krampus from that, or is that just strictly a thing that the we'll say Germans came up with?
Yeah, it's definitely seems to have German roots from everything I've seen. But that said, it also, from my research, does appear to be tied to many of what I guess you'd say the Germanic Fae lore.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's Fae lore in one shape or another in almost any culture you dive into, even if it's not called Fae. And that being said, if you do any type of journey work and you work with the Fae and you poke around with the Dark Fae long enough, you will hear about Krampus. So he definitely has a presence there. And that's actually something I was wanting to do. I was wanting to do some more journey work this year and dive into the Krampus myth and find out just exactly how he fits in with the Fae and the Winter Courts, or the Dark Fae, whatever you wanted to call them. And due to work, I just never had the free time to do it. But I do believe it's a little bit of both. I think he is that German myth, and I think he is an entity that is very much Fae. In fact, everything I've seen about him, I mean, you could just look over at the Dark Fae and be like, yeah, this guy would totally hang out here, no problems. That said, modern society has him more of a devilish creature.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if you've ever watched the show Grimm.
No.
I highly recommend you do, because of your Fae work and your supernatural stuff that you like study and everything like that. But they tie in a lot of lore and a lot of we'll just say a lot of fantasy lore or fantasy-based lore, what is it? Mythozoological, whatever it is. They put a lot of that into it. They actually do a lot of research on some of the stuff. And like at first I was like kind of skeptical on like where they get a lot of their mythologies for some of these things. But then they did La Llorona, which is the crying woman, the story from Mexico, and they covered it really, really well. They put it in a more modernized twist to them. But Krampus actually was one of the ones that they covered, and it was insane. But so yeah, I'm personally not very familiar with Krampus. I do know about the Krampus celebration, but we'll go ahead back to the whole dark fae stuff and the stealing of children. Where in the world does that come from? Because how do they know, if a child is bad or good, especially when we've already covered that when it comes to magic, there is no good, there is no evil, there is just chaos and order. And they can overlap and they can all that. Or I should say lawful and chaotic, if we're going to go for like D&D terms and gaming terms. But, we've covered the fact that there's no good and evil, it's just light and dark, and it's more order and chaos rather than anything else. How does the Fae, or how would one spiritually determine that a child is bad or good? Because if you, like everybody in this world knows that I am child-free, and as far as kids go, like I'm a supporter of, the children who are alive and well and stuff. They shouldn't be abused, they shouldn't be hurt, they shouldn't be mistreated. But, I'm basically, we're overran, we're overpopulated as a species, and we probably shouldn't be popping out 20 more kids. But that's a whole other argument.
That's a different show.
That's a different show. That's just caffeine and chaos going off on a rant right now. But how does one determine that a child is bad? Because children as a whole are not inherently bad. They get into mischief.
And you just flipped open Pandora's box.
They just do mischievous things. But how does the Fae determine that a child is so bad that it must be taken away and eaten?
90% of the time, they don't.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When it comes to the Fae kidnapping people, most of the time it's someone wanders into their realm and the Fae want to welcome them, be hospitable and inviting to them. But those people may never come back. Now, by our definition, they got kidnapped. By the Fae, they're being a good host and welcoming somebody who wandered in, a traveler. And they gave them a new home. So, a lot of the times when we're talking about the Fae taking children, this is generally what we mean. And these stories really come from the fact that people did believe the Fae would do this. So we would tell the stories to keep the kids out of the areas that Fae might be in.
Okay.
So we scared the kids into behaving. Which, I'll admit, growing up, that's a tactic that works on most kids. So, I know this day and age it's wrong to scare a kid, but I'm sorry if it's between, them behaving and growing up to be a good person or being a little shit, I say scare them. But that goes to the other show.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's plenty of children out there in this world that I wouldn't mind sacrificing to Krampus just for the fact that, and they drive me nuts.
This is why I say it's Pandora's box. Because technically, the Fae have like a umbrella standard of rules of etiquette, how you behave, how you approach a person, how you approach their areas, how you approach their homes. That umbrella splits with the light Fae and the dark Fae. So their rules deviate each. Okay? And it further splits from type of Fae to type of Fae. So every type of Fae also has their own operating rules that have to be respected. And then that is supposed to be split and divided by every individual Fae has the rules of their own individual home.
Okay, then.
So you can see how this can get maddening real quick. And it's so big that, let's say the Queen of the Fae herself was to go visit the most menial school, little pointless Fae. And she went to its house. Now, that Fae has to treat her with her station. That's true. And it has to treat her as a good guest. It has to be a good host. So it can't just be putting her down. But she is fully expected to obey the rules of that Fae's house as well.
Okay.
So when it comes to courtesy and, being a host and being a guest, entities like the Fae take that to a level that it is universal law. You have to do it. So my theory on Krampus is he's actually in a lot of ways doing that. And part of his thing is he's trying to get kids to behave in some twisted logic of his brain. Now the question is, does he actually kidnap them, or is he just trying to scare them or give them nightmares? That's where it all gets a little twisted, because we got the myths that we tell, and most people's pretty sure there's an entity that embodies Krampus, that whether it's a whole species that are basically bunches of what we think is a single entity, or if it's just a singular Krampus. The question for me comes, is he kidnapping all these kids exactly as our legends say, or is he doing it in another way and we're telling it this way to scare the kids?
Okay.
That's what I want to find out.
I want to know that too. No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to change the mythos any, because I love the pictures of Krampus carrying off cages of kids.
Yes.
I mean, I could give him some addresses.
Do you have a cutoff on your age of children? Can man children also be included? Because I got a couple addresses for those as well.
I've never thought to ask that question, and I'm with you on that. I know a bunch of dumb men that probably need to be carried off.
Although, there's some women children out there too, but I have a few men in mind specifically. The women they usually end up getting their just desserts, but that's a whole nother story as well. So going back to Santa Claus, good old Saint Nicholas, big old chubby jolly fellow, happy to give kids coal and
patron saint of sailors, kids, and bartenders.
Hell yeah!
How do you even get that combination?
I don't know.
I like him though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good dude. Now, first off, I do want to say I think it is quite comical that it is said that naughty children receive coal in their stockings, especially since, about the same time that that Santa Claus became a really popular icon for kids across the world. Coal was actually a very big commodity. It's something that you needed for your home to keep your home warm and to fuel vehicles and to, live. It was a necessity. It wasn't necessarily a punishment to receive coal in your stocking, in my personal opinion. So, I mean, I find that interesting that is what was told of children. If you misbehave, Santa would... No,
that's actually an ingenious question, because I wondered about that a lot growing up. Even as a small child, my brain worked in weird ways. Because we actually had a coal-burning stove when I was younger. And I remember my dad working to try and make sure we had coal to burn. So here I am as a kid being told, behave or you get coal in your stocking. And I'm seeing my family try to get a hold of coal. And it's like, well, shouldn't I be punching people so we get more coal for free?
Same thing.
Yeah, so I see the disconnect there. And that's one of the things I actually did do some research on. And there's nothing hard and fast on it. But here's the largest standing theory that I was able to find. Now, if somebody out there has heard another theory on this or can point me in something more concrete, please do. Because this is something I've always found neat. But toys are for fun, play, and leisure. Okay?
Okay.
Coal, though needed, represented work.
Okay.
So instead of playing, you instead of getting that time off, that playtime, coal represented the fact that you're going to have to bust your hump. You didn't behave, so you're going to have to give extra to help out the family, and you're going to be doing more work.
Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense.
It really does. It really does. Because I never associated toys and coal in kind of a work or relaxation concept, because we're viewing it as you get a gift or you don't. But when you look at it through that lens, that does make a lot of sense.
Travis, you need to quit putting the horse before the cart, friend. Or the cart before the horse. That's the words I'm looking for.
What do you want?
Okay, so, because I was trying to bring us back to Santa Claus, because I was actually going to get to Santa's Little Helpers.
Oh.
Where in the world do my people fit into this equation? And when I say my people, I mean elves, I mean short people, I mean, those of us with tiny hands.
Fae.
How do they, though, come into the mixture of being toy makers? And
this is where Odin ties right back into the Yule.
Let's hear it. I'm ready. My body is ready for this.
One of Odin's names is actually Allfather, which I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and I apologize, but you have two realms of what basically translates to elves. You have the light elves and the dark elves. And Odin, one of his names, would translate into Elf Father. Now, here's the kicker. Guess what elves are best known for in Norse mythology?
Magic.
Magic and their craftsmanship.
Okay.
A dwarf and an elf in Norse mythology are somewhat interchangeable. So, depending on the translation and who you talk to, because believe me, when it comes to Norse mythology, people disagree a lot. But the dwarves that crafted all the weapons of the gods and everything, those could also be translated into elves. And because of that, you have that craftsmanship thing. This is, even the gods themselves go to these entities to have things made. They're that good of craftsmen. And since Odin was said to give out gifts, and all the gifts of the gods seem to come from the elves, it was just assumed the elves were making the gifts that Odin was giving out.
Okay.
So that's the big one that jumps out to me. And then, of course, when you look at the Fae in general, Fae have always been known as really great craftsmen. And almost all your elfin type entities are definitely tied in with the Fae in one way or another. And the Fae love to play. They love to give gifts to those who are good. Again, it's that hospitality thing. So they love to reward people that make them feel at home and, just bring them joy and happiness. So we easily translate that to, you've been a good person all year. You're going to get a little something as a gift, as a thank you. And we simplify the hospitality side of it. But that's really the two major places those are coming from that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
Which, of course, Odin lived in the North and North Pole and all that crap.
Okay, so Travesty brings up a good point. He goes, Dark Elves. I knew drows were associated with Santa.
Yeah, how do you pronounce it? It's like Snarfvalheim. And the Snarfnablum, how is that pronounced? But it's the Dark Elves. They live underground. They rarely see light, if ever. And they're the ones that often get referred to as dwarves. But they would essentially, they're also referred to as Dark Elves. And there's some people who believe the dwarves and the Dark Elves are separate in that mythos. It's just, again, when you're looking at the translations, it gets hard. But either way, both are very good craftsmen. Both have helped, so it still would work out. But technically, yeah, Drow are elves and they're craftsmen, and they may be helping us out for the holidays. Which,
So what I'm hearing,
I've read some of Salvador's work, so that's kind of a funny thing to think about.
is that Christmas, while it is fun and warm and festive, it's all just plagiarism.
Everything's plagiarism if you get around to it.
I mean, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery.
That's what they say.
So I'm going to say, you got any final shots before we go? Because I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, and there's so much more we can cover, but we have hit our coffee hour.
Holy hell, have we? We have.
We have.
Well, my biggest thing for any of these holidays, so yeah, this is kind of a personal thing for me, so I would like to share it.
Let's hear it.
I'm not going to say the myths and the lores and the traditions are important, because they are. They are very important. We shouldn't forget the past. But don't worry so much about it that the holidays aren't fun. And this is a big thing for me, because I'll admit, anyone who knew me for any long period of time will know I didn't like the holidays. I was the biggest Scrooge or Grinch you have ever met.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah. You did not want to be around me after Thanksgiving. Actually, probably before Thanksgiving. Because most of my life, Thanksgiving on was just one hassle. So even when I started studying magic and learning about paganism, I still had that feeling to holidays. So for me, celebrating the Sabbats did not come easy, because now I just got more holidays to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a part of those holidays that I missed that my wife pointed out. The big focus on all of these holidays was on family and ancestors. So it was, what does your family do? What does your clan do? What does your tribe do? What does your people do to celebrate? What does your culture do? And when you look at it through that lens, it's about figuring out, how does your household and your family and your group of friends, what do you all do to celebrate? Figure that out, do it, and have fun. And celebrate the fact that you all are together. You survived another trip around the sun. And look forward to tackling the next trip together. Now, when I approached it from that perspective, all the past crap just fell away.
Okay. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. My little bit on the holidays, as I said, today starts Solstices. So if that is what you're celebrating, I wish you a blessed solstice. If I remember correctly, today is also the first day of Hanukkah, or Hanukkah's been going on and I just haven't been paying attention. But happy Hanukkah to those of you who celebrate. Wednesday is Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays in that regard. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, I personally don't know many people who do, but I do know it is still a very celebrated holiday. So happy Kwanzaa. Everybody have a blessed solstice, and, stay safe. Be around people who make you happy. If that's not your family, then don't be around your family. Be around your friends who make you happy. If it's just your dog that makes you happy, then you know what? Put that little scruffy pup in a sweater, take a picture or a selfie with it, and post it on my Twitter, because I want to see that shit, because that is adorable as heck. But be safe. Have fun. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.
Stay safe.
Being safe is number one, because we want to see you in the new year. We want to see you back on this channel. We want to see you on Twitter. We want to see you on YouTube, Facebook. It doesn't matter. I want to make sure that anybody who is watching this right now know that you are cared about. Even if I've never met you, even if you've never commented on a video of mine, I care about you. If you have any problems with the holidays, I know they can get tough. Take it from somebody who honestly has hated the holidays for a very long time. I know they get tough. I know it's hard. If you need to talk to somebody, please reach out. I will message you back on Twitter. I will message you back up on here. If you happen to know me on any other social media platform, you can message me on there and I will reply. I will be there for you for the holidays. Travesty brought up a good point about Christmas. I do have a kind of somewhat traditional Christmas dinner that I'm going to be making for myself and Paul. And you know what? Fuck it. We'll do a food stream on Wednesday, guys. So you better be there. It's going to be delicious. I'm making prime rib.
I might pop in. We actually had our Yule dinner last night. We had cowboy prime ribs. And I've actually got a nice pork butt that I actually plan to smoke for Christmas.
That sounds fantastic.
So that's the beauty of it. I get to celebrate both.
See, there you go. I'm just going to celebrate everybody because I love celebrating. I mean, any reason for me to eat and drink, I mean, I'll be merry all day, every day. Give me a new holiday.
It's like St. Patty's Day. Everybody's Irish.
I mean, I do have a shirt that says, "Today I'm Irish." But I actually am, so it's okay.
Well, I have a little in there.
I mean, do you have a little bit of Irishman in you?
Yeah.
Do you like some? Anyways, that's all we have for today. Drake, tell us about your newest video that you posted and what you're coming up with here in the next few days.
Well, we just recently posted the replay of episode 5 of the Magickal Coffee Hour up on the YouTube channel. And Friday, what did I release Friday? Hold on, camera moving. Oh, duh. I should have known that. And Friday, we actually launched the first part of a how to make a multi-berry mead. So we started.
Right. I saw that.
Yeah, we started that series and looking forward to finishing it out. And then Monday, we've got how to make a physical magical circle.
Okay.
We're going to show some tips and tricks on how to make a physical magical circle easily and relatively inexpensive and somewhat stealthily for those who are worried about people finding out they practice.
I'll have to definitely take a look at that one.
And we are coming in close on finishing the free class that we're launching for training clairvoyance in the arcane sight. So stay tuned for that because that's something that I get asked about a lot, and we just decided, you know what, let's just do a free class of it and get that up on the school.
Okay, so Travis says happy holidays, Drake. And he also suggests that you should also do a cooking stream as well.
We've done a few of those. And if you've watched any of them...
videos. You haven't done a stream on here yet.
Oh, that don't count? Oh, shit.
No.
Damn.
You gotta do it on... You gotta do it on stream.
Okay, well, let me rephrase that then. We have considered it, and the main reason we have not done so yet is my kitchen with the size of it. We've been having trouble with lighting and everything else and jet noise and God knows what else. But it is something we are considering, and we're just trying to figure out the logistics a little better.
Well, he says, do it, Drake. Do it.
But we are actually doing other live streams because one of the ones we're wanting to start in the new year, I'm going to be doing a live stream where it's just me, and I'm going to be talking about my research, what I've got going on, because apparently people are interested in what I actually do when I'm not teaching. And we're going to be taking questions and topics and stuff like that. So we've got to figure a name out for it, and so we're going to be, the ideal is I'll talk about what I've been researching and what I've been finding, and people can either work along with me or whatever.
I like it.
Or just
let us know when you're doing it so we can drop in and hang out.
Will do. We're hammering out the final details, trying to survive the holidays, and hopefully no later than February we'll be up and running.
All right. So for everybody who's over here on Caffeine and Chaos, Travesty, BJ, guys, thank you so much for dropping in and hanging out and including yourselves in the conversation. We really do love that. For anybody who comes in and wants to just hang out, it's totally cool if you just want to listen. But we also really love your questions. We also love your feedback. Anything you want to say. I mean, if you want to freaking troll us, we got thick skin, okay? We can handle some trolling. It's fine.
And by all means, come in and try and stump me. I love it. Gives me a reason to research.
I love playing Stump the Chump with this guy. Like, I have all these questions I ask are actually legit questions. It's very rare that I ask him anything that I have prior knowledge to. And if I do ask him something that I have some prior knowledge to, it's more or less me wanting that confirmation. So every question I have is a genuine question that I really want to know about, and I think others would also enjoy knowing about everything about learning. Travesty says he can't wait till our New Year's, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait either.
Do we have one actually on New Year's?
We may not be on New Year's, but we'll definitely be doing something right before New Year's.
Yep, we'll definitely have to have something similar. Yeah.
I'll see if I can find me a cute little party hat. I'll start wearing hats to the stream.
I've done ruined her, people.
I have an obsession with hats.
Yeah.
But,
well, I had to customize my holiday hat here. So.
Yeah, I guess I can start doing some festive hats for you.
It didn't look right without the brim. Here, y'all want a good laugh? Check this out. Go ahead and fix it. There we go. No brim. It just don't look right. It don't look right.
Look, there we go. We match now.
Yep.
He's Santa and I'm the elf.
Yep. We got it.
Guys and girls and guys, boys and girls and everybody in between. I am Caffeine and Chaos, also known as the Linda. This has been the Magical Coffee Hour with Drake, the Working Dragon Mystic. You can find him on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up Working Dragon Mystic. He is there. He is fun. He is lovable, and he is super knowledgeable. So if you have any questions, send them to him. If you have any questions you want vetted through me, go ahead and send them to me. But I won't be vetting. I'll just say, hey, I have a question. Because, I have no filter. There is no filter here. But anyways, I hope everybody has a great happy holidays, and I will see all of you guys next time. Bye!
Bye. Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay, here we go. He threw a couple extra questions in the chat. He goes, hopefully you guys can elaborate on how some religions use fireworks and incense to ward evil spirits for a safe year. Please take care of you guys.